Many hypotheses have been highlighted in the recent years. Of course, the first hypothesis was genetic. But genetic of human people did not change. So the second reason is what it has been called the Iodine hypothesis. What does that mean? That means that maybe because of the fact that more and more newborns get birth in a very hygienic environment without any stimulation at the beginning, maybe this change their immune development. This is linked to the microbiota, and it has been well demonstrated that, for instance, children who are growing up in farms have less frequently allergic disease than children who are growing up in urban area. But we must not neglect another factor, which is the environment. And in the environment, you have, of course, the pollution. Altogether, this interferes with what is called programming during the first 1,000 days, not only after birth, but also in utero. Altogether, this can explain the increase of allergic disease at the early stage with dermatitis, atopic dermatitis, and later on with asthma. Of course, asthma is more linked to environment and pollution. Until recently, people think that, when I mean people, I mean scientists, the newborn before birth is totally sterile, no bacteria. This is wrong. Now we know, thanks to the new method of research, we know that even in utero, the mother gives to the baby some bacteria in the amniotic fluid, but also through the placenta. And by the way, this microbiota is going to modulate the immune development of the fetus and then after the newborn. After birth, the microbiota who is going to be on the skin but also on in the gut is totally dependent first of the way of delivery. Children born by vaginal way have not the same microbiota than those who are born by C-section. And it has been well demonstrated that C-section born babies develop more frequently allergic disease. There are several factors who interfere, each one with each other. Atopic dermatitis is a chronic inflammatory disease who most of the times occur in early stage of life between the 3rd and the 6th months of life. But it can go on afterwards. The first factor, of course, is genetic. We speak of atopic field. A child born from parents who themselves are atopic is twice more prone to develop atopic dermatitis, or even 3 times more than the child born of parents without atopic history. The second genetic way is, now we know that you have in the structure of the skin some protein, one of which is the filaggrin, which can have some mutation, some change. And this filaggrin, when it's not normal, make the bed of the atopic disease. Why? Because the skin permeability is increased. Then, if you have a modification, a change in the skin microbiota, mainly if instead of having some very good bacteria, among which you have Staphylococcus epidermidis, you have an increase of Staphylococcus aureus, another one, especially after an antibiotic treatment who will select this Staphylococcus. This Staphylococcus also will increase the skin permeability. If the skin permeability increases, then the food antigens, that means the part of the food who is able to provoke allergic disease, can enter in the skin and change the way of the skin response. But that's not all. You have also some gut factors, and the microbiota in the gut also play a role. Because remember that we said that the microbiota in the gut is acting in the modulation of the immune system at a stage of child life when he is going to build his immune system. And then you have a balance between some cytokine and, by the way, a balance between some cells which are going either to fight against inflammation, either to fight against allergy. Most of the children at birth are what we call Th2 predominant. They have more cells who are Th2 in their immune system. Thanks to the microbiota are going to stimulate a kind of policeman which is called T regulator, which days after days will balance between Th2 and Th1. If the microbiota diversity in the gut, as well as in the skin, on the skin, is not important enough, then this role is not played, and you have an increase of Th2 response. That means allergic and atopy. All food can be potentially allergenic. Of course, some are more allergenic than others. That's the first thing. So if the child is more prone to develop allergic disease, he will be more prone to be sensitized by the food allergen, especially when they are given to him very early in life. But the food also is the fuel of the microbiota. Depending on the food you eat, you have different microbiota. Going back to the newborn baby, we well know that if a newborn is fed with breast milk, thanks to the composition of the breast milk, he will be less prone to develop allergic disease. Why? Because in the breast milk you don't have only nutrients, you also have microbiota in the breast milk, especially bifidobacteria and lactobacillus. But you also have some prebiotic, which are fuel for microbiota, which are called human milk oligosaccharides. These oligosaccharides are very diverse and numerous More than 200 of them have been already identified. And these oligosaccharides are going to stimulate some bacteria in the milk itself, I mean in the breast milk itself, and afterwards in the infant gut. Then it has been shown that if you give to children early in life, I mean just after birth, cow's milk protein, but only if children are prone to develop atopic dermatitis, that means if they have a family history of atopy, then you are more prone to develop atopic dermatitis. If you give them hydrolyzed protein, they will less develop. Food can provoke atopic dermatitis, especially in children genetically prone to develop it, especially first because of first contact, secondly because it changes the microbiota. The main goal, of course, is to prevent atopic dermatitis. Presently, at least 20% of children before the age of 3 years are going to develop atopic dermatitis. How to prevent? By fighting against the environment pollution, by using less frequently antibiotics, surely, by better understanding the role of microbiota and which bacteria are good for health and which one or which mixture of bacteria we can give to babies when they don't receive breast milk. Which kind of prevention can we give to the baby? Also, it's a question of education of the parents and of the doctors. It's very important not to let the skin becoming dry in the baby and not use some soap who are going to dry the skin. Not use too much antibiotics, I already said that. And most of the infectious disease in children in developed countries are viral disease. We don't need to use antibiotics. And by decreasing the use of antibiotic, we can decrease the dysbiosis. Dysbiosis is when the microbiota in the gut and on the skin are no more balanced, no more diverse. This is a big challenge. A lot of research are going on with that, but just you have to know that, for instance, in the gut we have more than 1,000 different strains of bacteria. We only know 30% of them. So there is a long way to totally understand how the microbiota is helping our health. And that makes several millennia we are living with it.